It is 6 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the AP, our Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission, December 3rd, 2025 business meeting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gardner,
Here.
Commissioner Weiner,
Here.
Commissioner Bachman,
Here.
Commissioner Adams,
Here.
Commissioner Lant,
Here.
all present.
Third item on the agenda is approval of minutes. I'm looking to see if anybody has any corrections, changes. No. In that case, I'm asking for unanimous consent, and absent any objections, I hear none. It is the approval of minutes for the Park Commission business meeting October 1st, 2025, Park Commission study session November 2025, and Park Commission regular business meeting November 12th, 2025 are approved by unanimous consent. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? None tonight, which brings us to public forum. We have 5 people who have asked to speak. All 6 people who have asked to speak. And is this one the same thing?
No, it's Winburn Way.
Winburn, oh, I see it now. Okay, 5 people, excuse me, for public forum speaking to an item not on the agenda. So I'm going to call 5 up at once. If you'd line up along the wall, you'll each have 3 minutes to speak. Please give us your full name and your city of residence for our official record. And Deputy Director Dials will be the timekeeper, so just look to her for a warning, and then she'll call the 3-minute if you go that far. So, in this order of people who submitted their request forms: Vince Doyle, Francesca Ferracano, Angelina McLean, Flavio Franco, and Sharon Bryson. And if you'd speak in the order I called you, please, so we can keep the name straight for the record.
All set.
Go ahead.
For the record, my name is Vince Doyle, and I'm a resident of Ashland. And I'd like to thank the commission and the chairman for the opportunity to give some public comment on this very important topic. I am a beekeeper. I'm also a member of the Southern Oregon Beekeepers Association. And, I'm very, very concerned about the spraying of glyphosate in and around the town. Anyway, Ashland is a Bee City USA affiliate, a program that encourages cities to support pollinators. The city's commitments include creating pollinator-friendly gardens, reducing pesticides use, and raising public awareness. I'm gonna quote from a research paper that was done in 2018. Glyphosate harms bees by disrupting their gut microbiome, weakening their immune system, and impairing their nervous and cognitive functions. This can lead to increased susceptibility to pathogens, navigation problems, and ultimately a higher risk of death and colony collapse. Glyphosate is a known carcinogenic. It is banned in many countries in Europe. In my personal opinion, it probably should be banned in this country as well. I urge the Parks Department to please discontinue the use of glyphosate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle.
I'm Francesca Ferracano, and I live in Ashland. And I've been a resident off and on for 33 years. I did live in Talent for a few years, and I had 3 dogs. All 3 dogs died within 3 years because I lived up against my property line was up against a vineyard, and they used Roundup quite a bit. 2 of my dogs died of tumorous cancer, and the other one died of acute liver failure. And I just feel like there's just no reason to be using it in this environment. I believe it does get into the water because where I was living, I was kind of downslope from the vineyard, and I had sort of a drainage that ran through the property. My dogs would go through there. So I can't absolutely prove that's what it's from, but it was just, it's odd, in 3 years that I've lived there, I lost all 3 dogs. So I feel like this glyphosate should just not be used. There's alternatives to weed killing, like vinegar and soap, or just, how about just using like a battery-operated weed whacker and just whack the weeds down? I mean, weeds are actually good for the environment. It's not bad. So I feel like there's no safe amount of this poison that should be allowed in the environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Angelina McLean, and I live in Ashland. I lived here for several decades. I spoke to council last night, and I'm going to repeat what I said last night. I'm concerned about the recent policy change apparently made in August of 2025 regarding herbicide use and including the Ashland Street median plans. I live there, and I was appalled to see them being sprayed last week. Glyphosate, which has been mentioned already, was used on our medians, and which is the active ingredient in Roundup, is banned in many countries around the world. It is linked to certain cancers and involved in lawsuits where the injured plaintiffs have won. Just because we have it available in some of our hardware stores does not make it inherently safe. It is also toxic to other forms of life, as that's been mentioned, including pollinators. Pollinators are in dangerously sharp decline, and Ashland, as a designated Bee City USA, should be working to, at the very least, preserve the habitats and food sources we already have for the pollinators and not subject them to extra spraying with toxic chemicals. We've been a Bee City since 2015, and I believe SOU was the first college campus in the United States to be a Bee City USA college campus. I feel like this herbicide policy change does not fit in with our commitment to pollinators. The citizens of Ashland are largely health conscious and environmentally proactive. We have long been proud of and reassured to know that the city doesn't spray pesticides regularly in public spaces. Changing this policy and increasing the public areas that are sprayed with herbicides is not in alignment with our citizens' values and is not the safest or most responsible option. I urge the city to stop the spraying, listen to input for alternatives, and reconsider this policy and then the Ashland Street median plans, which the median plan where the plants were removed and replaced with rocks is very unpopular with citizens. I was just told that that is not planned to continue along the rest of the Ashland Street, and I hope that's true. But I know that the planned maintenance with spraying with glyphosate means that it's would have to be an ongoing thing, even in the rocks. So I'm concerned about that. So there are resources available to us for options that are safer for our workers and the citizens and the other creatures that we share Ashland with. It's our responsibility to be stewards to this land that we reference in our city's opening land acknowledgement that the City Council speaks to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. For the record, my name is Flavia Franco, and on behalf of Bellevue Grange number 759, we want to record our objection to the practice of spraying glyphosate on the city's median strips to inhibit weed growth. There are non-toxic substitutes for glyphosate that can be used, such as vinegar solutions, chelated iron-based sprays, or OMRI, listed organic herbicides. Our objection to glyphosate is that it is the most widely used herbicide, which is a type of pesticide in the world, having applied 3.5 billion pounds. This is updated from the letter that I wrote yesterday. This is more current. The last figures I had given was from 2015. And that is in the US, 3.5 billion pounds since 1974, and almost 19 billion pounds worldwide. In 2015, the World Health Organization's agency that does the research classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. And the EPA's conclusions have been about giving it a non-carcinogenic status has been called into question. And there are thousands of lawsuits still pending, and billions are being offered by Bayer, who now owns this chemical, to settle. In light of these possible risks, the workers that have to apply this chemical are also undertaking additional and unnecessary risk because there are substitutes available. In addition to human risk, as stated by the others, the chemical poses significant risk to pollinators, namely disruption to their gut biome, and inhibits their navigation abilities. Ashland is affiliated with Bee City USA and has a commitment to reduce the use of pesticides and to have an integrated pest management plan that expands the use of non-chemical pest management methods. And also because Jackson County banned GMO crops back a decade ago, people have a much lower exposure to pesticides than in other parts of the country. And the pollinators of Ashland and the people of Ashland would be much better off with zero exposure to this chemical. Therefore, given the above mentioned information on behalf of Bellevue Grange, we are asking that you eliminate glyphosate altogether from your landscape maintenance practice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Bryson. I am a resident of Ashland, and I'm here to talk to you about the same topic that the previous speakers talked. This practice of using glyphosate is inappropriate. There are several alternative approaches that can get the same results and don't have the same consequences to the health and residents of the health of our citizens and our ecosystem. This new code, obviously you guys didn't write the code, but it extends the use of poison is unclear and has no boundaries. The code is open to interpretation, but does nothing to protect the public. I would like to see this code reversed, obviously it's not your job, or at a minimum adjusted so the city can only be allowed to spray this poison within 1/2 mile of any resident, public foot traffic, or work site. Workers in park management taking their own steps. Oh, I have to go back one second. You talk about worker safety. Trained workers should know how to protect themselves from potential accidents, such as using cones or blinking lights on their trucks to divert traffic away from work sites. Workers in park management taking their own steps to safety seem like a small ask rather than exposing innocent children and vulnerable population. I will be honest, I do not know where the Parks Commission is in setting codes. I know it's not your job, but I have learned from Mr. Garner that you can write policy. I'm urging the commission to please develop a policy that parks stop using this poison, researching less toxic approaches to accomplishing the goal, and to keep poison out of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our public forum for this evening. 6 is a consent agenda. We have no items there, so we're on to our director's report, which is item 7. We have one more speaker who will speak before the item 3, I think. Yes, 3, so maybe I remember that.
Good evening. For the record, Rocky Houston, Director, Ashland Parks and Recreation. It's been a couple months being up here, so if I stumble around with my words, it's just because I'm not used to it. So it's not the pain meds anymore. So Director's report tonight is going to be pretty quick. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the ice rink. So as you all know, we transitioned from a seasonal ice rink structure that we put up and took down every year to a permanent structure to try to reduce the roughly $100,000 a year in costs and the limiting factor of contractors to do it. We're down to only one contractor in the state of Oregon who reluctantly was coming down to still do it. We went through a building permit process to change it from temporary to permanent. We went through all the normal processes. As part of that, we had to get updated structural plans from the manufacturer. We need to determine After we did that, back in June, we determined that the manufacturer's engineer didn't have an Oregon professional engineer stamp, which is a requirement per Oregon code. So we worked with them to determine how long it would take. They said 60 days to get that Oregon stamp. During that time, we hired an architect to complete the application process and ensure that our permanent structure was in compliance with all of the Oregon building codes. We also completed a special inspection with another structural engineer locally to determine that the structures, bolts, fasteners, and all that were still structurally sound per the requirements. The issue occurred is 1 week before Thanksgiving, on a Thursday, if I recall correctly. I was out, not in the office, but Deputy Director Dials received notice that manufacturer is having some financial troubles and laid off their structural engineer. We panicked, started to throw up all of the things that we could to say, we've got a contract, we've got an agreement. They agreed to work on bringing that engineer back on a limited duration to address that. We still, and look to get a administrative, I'll call it a temporary stamp here in Oregon as well. So that's plan A, is to work on that. We are working in patiently, meaning emailing and calling daily, to see where they're at in that process, and actually have called the state of Oregon's engineering and something else commission board to again determine where they're at in that process and confirm everything, double checking everything. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we are still working. Additionally, we worked with our architect to identify another local structural engineer who could do those structural plans. Of course, them not being the manufacturer, there's a lot of questions they have about the extrusion of aluminum and all these things. Again, we're trying to work to get that data and get a proposal. Right now, it appears that if Plan A doesn't work out, it's going to take us till mid-January to have that other structural engineer do the necessary work and get it submitted for a building permit. So our best case scenario is next week we will get the necessary structural documents stamped and be able to move forward the process and be able to open up for first frost on, I believe that's December 20th. I keep looking at Deputy Director Dials because this is weighing heavily on her as it is the rest of the community. And our worst case scenario is it's not going to, it'll take us until the end of the season before we'll be able to own it. The good news is we'll have it all set up for permanent and ready for the future. The downside is we won't be able to operate that this year. So any questions before I move on to the next topic? And we have met with community development, the fire marshal, et cetera, looking at alternatives and risks associated with different insurance, other things to allow the use in there. From a layman's perspective, it's been like this for 12 years. It's in good shape. However, legally, we need to make sure that it's a commercial product and that it is got the right permits and right sign-offs so that if something bad does happen, we've checked all the balances. Worst case scenarios, we get snow, eventually, and it would cave in and hurt someone, and we didn't have it officially approved from a building permit perspective. The next issue, which sorry.
I'm just spitballing and something that you guys have probably already thought about. So my understanding is it's permitted for seasonal use, but not permitted for permanent use. Is that correct? That's how we've been able to have it up for the last 5 years.
So as a temporary structure, the fire marshal now, and I believe this is the prior practice, is allowed to give you a 6-month permit to allow it to be up for 6 months. Because we kept it up during the parking cycle, non-use, that 6 months got used up and ended on October 15th. On October 15th, it appeared that we had everything set up to where we get our stamp and everything would be submitted in time to be able to open on our normal schedule. And unfortunately, that's where the wrench got thrown into the issues. We also looked at, can we just take the structure down and put it by? So it would take us about 30 days because we break everything down, then have a contractor come in, remove the structure, and then put it back all up, have the ice refreeze, all those steps. So again, we couldn't, I don't know if we heard back from the contractor, but even if we could, we're still looking at a late December, early January opening if we did that alternative, with the additional cost of about $100,000 to bring it down and take it up. So it was horrible not to have it there for the lighting and here for this last weekend, and we're hoping that that's the only, we get some good news into this week, next week. So this topic about median operations in alignment with, I think, the 5 public comments today in regards to the use of herbicides. So as they identified, there's been concern raised in regards to the use of herbicides in the medians. Hopefully I've got the right AMC identified here, but AMC 9.28 is the city's code in regards to the city utilizing herbicides and pesticides, which allows it to be used on public lands. Of course, you all know that we at the Park Commission have our own policy, integrated pest management policy, which is related to park lands. Prior to me coming here, I believe back in June of 2024, Public Works Director had come in front of you to look for a modification of the integrated pest management. I believe at that time there was a concern or discrepancy is that our staff who are working on city property outside of parks, the integrated pest management policy we had didn't allow them to spray, and so that they came forward to get that. And part of that, I believe, is because in a very short period of time right before he came forward to you guys, there was 8 claims for weed eaters hitting rocks and creating damage to parked and moving cars and creating other risks and liabilities to the city. And at that time, our policy was modified to where it didn't impact how we operate herbicides and pesticides on parklands. However, it did allow city policy or city code to be utilized for other city properties. And our goal is not to use much. We follow all of the city's code, our policies. Our applicators are licensed by the state of Oregon. We log, we do all the things to minimize the utilization. We use another product on the medians called Carceron, which is a post-emergent weed killer. So again, it has a longer last. We don't have to be out there as long. We have considered using a pre-emergent as well, again, so that and as we go through, there'll be less and less. In addition, you all know is that the city has also changed some other codes, so there is a different responsibility for all landowners, including parks, in regards to invasive weeds and fuels reductions. So there is additional responsibilities for us to get out there and do that. We do a lot of weed eaters, and takes a lot of time. When you are in the medians and other areas, there are other, the longer we're out there, the riskier it can be for our staff, and so we're trying to hold that line to do the best we can with the resources we have and the tools we have to do it. And identified products that are within the requirements and as safe as possible. I agree, it is a poison, but applied properly. All the information I have from the federal SDS sheets and all those things is that it is safe to use for the applicator and for the community. And we are cognizant of all the concerns being raised and continue to move forward and try to do it the best we can and with the least amount given the resources we have. And since the time that our policy was implemented, you guys all know we've had a 36% reduction in staff. With that comes continued efficiencies and ways of trying to provide the highest level of service with the team and the resources we have. So
I just have a comment and I want to ask a clarifying question, but my comment is that I was involved in that vote and I voted for the waiver because of my concern for the safety of the employees versus the automobile traffic. It's an extremely risky spot. Somebody's on the phone and they pop up onto the curb and maybe we have a collision with an employee. And so that was, I'm very aware of glyphosate. I was a commercial avocado grower. It is something to be used with great respect. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. I think the department policy is much more restrictive than the city. Is that the case?
yes, we identify that we only have safety-related issues where we can utilize, and at the golf course. So those are the only areas. Otherwise, we have to come forward to the commission and ask for use, such as we did earlier this year for the insecticides there in the Japanese garden.
Thank you. Commissioner Long.
Yeah, I want to point out that we actually, you have some exceptions for safety that you can use herbicides on within our park system. But even for safety, for additional safety reasons, you would have to come before us and get approval for anything beyond what we've already approved. So I just want to make that clear, that it isn't just that staff can say, well, there's a safety concern here, and we're going to use them. You would actually, we've really tried to be cognizant of the concerns and the safety going both ways. The safety of the potential harm of the herbicides on one side and the safety of staff and other people and on the other hand. So I just want to make that clear, that we have a very restrictive policy and the park commissioners are involved in any additional herbicide use in our system.
Thank you. Please go on.
I'm ready for the first agenda item of business if Commissioner Gardner is, and the chair.
So we're at item 8 and number 1 in business, which is Ashland Parks Foundation Annual Report, which will be given by the Parks Foundation Board President, Michael Gardner.
Greetings, Commissioner. For the record, Mike Gardner, President of Ashland Parks Foundation. So, as most of us know, the Parks Foundation exists to support Ashland Parks and Recreation. That's our sole mission. We look for ways to both raise funds and to distribute those funds to the Ashland Parks and Rec Department. We had a pretty exciting last couple of years, but specifically the highlights for 2025 are, just real briefly, we brought on a new board member, Patty Ackland. She was a past city councilor and also worked at SOU. Some of you might know her. We still have one vacancy on our 8-member volunteer board that we're looking to fill. And we also hired a new administrator in Teresa Fernandez is her name, and she's been with us since last February and is helping us move through some relatively new and exciting adventures, really, for the foundation. Over the summer, we completed a strategic planning process where we hired a local consultant, Shannon Brown, to guide us through the process of creating a strategic plan. We came up with a 5-year, 2026 to 2030 strategic plan with multiple goals, one of which is to work as a foundation towards building a $10 million endowment, which is a somewhat lofty goal, but it should be pretty exciting for us to get into the meat of that and to work forward. I'll just briefly talk about the Butler Parazzi Fountain, which is the biggest project that we've been working on over the last couple years. We've been, I think I've related this to most of you in the past, but over the summer we formalized an agreement with the city of Ashland to for the foundation to actually be the client in the remodel of the fountain. And we've been moving forward as a foundation with the original architect, which was this architectural resource group out of Portland, to finally get final drawings so that we can hire a contractor and hopefully begin the process of removing and replacing the fountain in 2026. I was asked by Commissioner Weiner earlier, when's the groundbreaking date? And I would hope that we are looking at a early to mid-spring start on this project. It's amazing how many moving parts there are to a project like this. It's not the largest project, obviously, that the city is working on, but it's a fairly complicated project, and we've had many community members come together to help us move the project forward. George Kramer, local historian, is helping us move through the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office process. We've been working with the city. We've incorporated the expertise of Dale Shostrom, who is a local, actually retired architect builder, who's kind of been working as our project manager as we work through the process. And hopefully we'll have a contract with Outlier Construction, who's worked on other city projects here within the next few weeks, is our goal there. So that's what's been happening, but also I wanted to bring up a slide that just to kind of give you a reference of what this is. This is basically the donations to particular line items in our budget, and then grants that we've made out of our budget to the particular line items. For instance, the top line there is donations to our unrestricted fund in the foundation, and then that's the money we've spent to operate our foundation this year is $30,498. But if you go down, we brought in donations of $8,000 for pickleball, and we've granted money to Parks and Rec Department of $10,000 for repairs at the courts. The Nature Center has brought in $2,000, and we've expended a grant to Parks and Rec for $800 for one of the projects that was there. I can't think of what one it is right off the bat. If you drop down a little lower, like the General Rec Division, we've granted 10 different grants for $13,000 for various projects, a pedal power, and that might even include the volunteer program and things like that. So this is just kind of a quick overview of money that's come in and money that's gone out. This just gives you, and I believe this one is this is the amount of grant money that we've sent out. So it's basically a pie chart of the of the same slide that I just went over, where, you know, you go through the different fund lines, pickleball, Protsy Fountain, Nature Center, whatnot. It kind of gives you an idea of where we've pushed the money towards. And then once again, this is actually the money that's come in to the foundation over this past year. So over the past year, between the Protsy Fountain, the Japanese Garden, you can see there in the middle on the line items, most of that money is actually from the donation box at the Japanese Garden. We were always pleasantly surprised how generous people are that come and visit the garden. It's free. They appreciate that, and they donate funds to us. That pretty much wraps it up, and I guess I'd ask if there was any questions from commissioners.
Well, first of all, thank you for the report, and thank you for helping the foundation do this great work, which benefits the community and the assets that we manage. And I want to remind, and tell me if I'm wrong when I get done with this, remind the community that you are a 501c3 you're a state chartered charitable organization, right. And donations to the foundation are tax deductible. So
exactly.
we still have almost a month left till the end of the year.
That's right. And we've been carrying on an annual giving program as well, which has been successful.
Anyone else have questions or comments for President Gardner?
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lott?
Oh. Yes, President Gardner, and also Commissioner Gardner.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I may not have caught it on the last, that pie chart, but it looked to me like on the spreadsheet that there had been about $30-some thousand of donations to the Japanese Garden.
22,000 actually.
Well, the slide before that, didn't it show 30-some thousand?
I don't have maybe the.
Yeah, that. What is that? Japanese Garden.
Yes, it does show that. Which is more than the other slide did. And I'm not sure why that discrepancy is there.
Well, actually, that's not really the question. Though.
Okay.
How much money was, or where did that money go? Is it still sitting there, or is it?
Yeah. It actually goes into the Japanese Garden Maintenance Fund, which is a long-term fund that was originally funded by the single large donor for the garden. Jeff Mangin created a maintenance fund that then we simply deposit this money that's brought into the maintenance fund, and then that will become available to the Parks Department on an annual basis.
Thank you. That was my understanding. Glad to hear it, but I also want to point out that that is a significant addition to the maintenance for the Japanese Garden. I mean, that's great. $36,000 in a year is it's a significant amount.
Yeah, and I'd just like to point out too that so we invest the funds that aren't needed to be spent immediately, and you know the investments have been good. We have close to $350,000 in the Japanese Garden maintenance account, and that probably brings in close to a couple $1,000s more in interest income, at least in the current situation now. So they're good. They're not sustainable funds, but they definitely grow. They're invested to help grow those funds. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to item 2 of business, which is the 2026 Park Commission meeting schedule, and that's an action item.
So I know the font's really small on the slide. However, in the packet, and I believe there was an updated schedule. Oh, it was right. All right. Sorry, we thought that we had an error on it. So this is the schedule. I'll go through it really quickly. So every 2 months, we've got a joint session with council, city council. So it goes between us hosting it and they're hosting. When they're hosting, instead of having 2 back-to-back meetings, we're looking to, again, try to work on that workload so we're not trying to reduce the number of meetings for y'all. We have a retreat on January 7th, which is for the pros plan, and that's going to be the service level goals. Next week, we'll have the strategic goals retreat. So we'll have those 2 items, provide a little bit more focused time on those 2 items. We've put in a summer break so that we are looking to reduce in July and August those study sessions and then have a tentative July 8th meeting. So if it is needed to do business, we've got that on the calendar. We have this room regardless, even with those meetings that are not scheduled, so we still have the room as a backup. Other than that, it should be fairly consistent, and I guess I do have a question, and I apologize, I'm looking on December 2nd, we have a retreat identified, and that should be just a study session, or actually, it's only 1 session typically in December, so I think that...
Right, there's just a single business
So that
meeting on the
December-
2nd.
Yeah, that December 9th will be eliminated, and December 2nd would be a business meeting, so I know there was an error in that, so we will get, if that correction is noted, we'll update that and then look to propose the action of moving the schedule for 2026.
Commissioner Lunt?
I move to
Turn.
I move to approve the schedule for next year as presented with the change in December where the business meeting's on the 2nd and no meeting on the 9th.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Lunt? Commissioner Adams? Commissioner Gardner?
So I would just like to say one thing. When we had the joint meeting with council last year, the one that we had, we were there for the beginning of the meeting, and then we left, and they continued to do their business. I would hope that we would kind of take that same format for us and not do our business on the night we have a joint meeting, and just a comment.
Right, and we're not voting on that, but I agree with that.
And it is identified in the schedule, so it shows a joint/business meeting, so we
Right.
have that articulated
So,
for
yeah.
that.
Yeah, we meet 1 business meeting a month. We need to get some business done. I'm just pointing out there are 4 of these. At one point I thought there might be 6, but there are 4. And 2 hosted by us that I am the presiding officer, and 2 by the mayor is the council, and mayor is the presiding officer, and that's the way we like to do our collaboration. However, I'm getting a little bit off topic here, so anybody else want to speak to the motion? Roll call, please. Vote, please.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lunt.
Yes.
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The third item is Wimburn Way safety, and we have 2 people who would like to speak to that one, which we like to hear from you first before we start deliberating. So the 2 people are Nick David and Gary Schaff, and they each have 3 minutes. And go ahead and line up, and then if you just give us your name, please, for the record, and your city of residence before you start. Thank you.
Nick David, Ashland, Oregon, lifelong resident. I just want to briefly address the core issue with the meeting packet prepared for tonight. It does not accurately represent the Transportation Advisory Committee's position regarding modifications to Windburn Way. The packet implies, and in some places directly states, that the TAC signaled support for altering the Y or reconfiguring Windburn at all. That is simply not true. The official TAC minutes recorded discussions show the opposite. TAC explicitly declined to support option 1B because of safety concerns, and the committee was not consulted on the design of how that is now being presented. TAC was not included in the site visit, was not asked to review alternatives, and did not recommend any reconfiguration of the Y intersection. Second, the safety data does not support this project. In nearly 30 years of records, Windburn has had essentially 0 reported injury incidents. You cannot meaningfully improve a perfect safety record by introducing new conflict points, tightening clearances between vehicles or pedestrians. Anyway, the TAC itself flagged those things as potentially less safe. Thirdly, the community survey is unambiguous. Roughly 78% of respondents said they prefer no changes to Windburn Way. The packet does not reflect the weight or clarity of that result. The TAC's only openness was toward a low-impact, context-sensitive option, such as permeable walking path adjacent to the roadway. That is the extent of their support. The packet does not communicate this accurately. My own view, shared by every resident that I have spoken with, is that a permeable path outside of the roadway is not only preferable, but far more aligned with how people actually experience Lithia Park. It preserves the natural character of the corridor, respects the trees, and gives walkers a comfortable and natural place to move through the park without forcing changes onto the roadway that is already functioning exceptionally well. Before closing, I would like to acknowledge the broader context. At Monday night's City Council meeting, or retreat, it was clear that Parks budget will face significant challenges within the coming year. Council discussed openly that if spending continues at its current pace, the general fund, which is the source of substantial capital for parks, would not be able to sustain discretionary projects of this type. That financial reality should inform every decision made tonight and in the coming meetings. When resources are tightening, it becomes even more important that projects remain efficient, accurate in their justification, honest in their presentation of advisory input, and tightly aligned with demonstrated community priorities. What is being advanced tonight bypasses TAC, and it misstates TAC's position, and it commits the city to a costly capital project with no demonstrated safety benefit. I'm asking the commission to pause, stop spending resources and staff time, correct the record, and ensure that advisory bodies are represented honestly before taking any action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Commission members. My name is Gary Schaff, and I live in Ashland. I would encourage you, if you haven't, to review the comments that were submitted, the written comments that were submitted by Streets for Everyone. I think that well characterizes my personal views, but tonight I'm speaking on my own behalf. I would like to praise the Commission for actually implementing the adopted Lithia Park Master Plan, which you adopted in 2024. I'm going to paraphrase something from that document. It's Recommendation 20, redesign vehicular roads to increase safety for all modes of travel, including pedestrians and bikes. It goes on to say, Windburn Way is a paved vehicular route with no sidewalks that bisects the park, creating an artificial boundary within the park by prioritizing vehicular and bicycle traffic, interrupting pedestrian traffic. The lack of clear pedestrian routes makes visitors on foot along Windburn Way feel disoriented and unsure of where to go. Modifying Windburn Way to better accommodate non-vehicular traffic is critical to overall circulation improvements in the park and addressing safety perceptions. I think that's a well-reasoned view of what's happening on Windburn Way. Yes, dog walkers walk there largely because there isn't any alternative, but most pedestrians don't. I mean, I've walked there, you've probably walked there, but it isn't pleasant, nor do you feel that you have a legitimate place in that roadway cross-section. Clearly, the Parks Department doesn't have funds to build sidewalks, which are needed for people who have ambulatory assistant devices, whether they be wheelchairs or walkers, a DG, or as far as that goes, a wooden chipped path will not meet their needs. So in closing, I would like you to designate a place for pedestrians, create the parallel disabled parking spots, and include raised sidewalks along Windburn Way in multiple locations. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time and energy serving on the commission.
Thank you. Director Houston.
Yes, thank you. So as a way of background, Lithia Park Master Plan identified a recommendation to address the safety on Windburn Way for all three modes of travel. In the beginning of this fiscal year, a work plan was created for the department and adopted by the Park Commission that identified the department to work on a solution to improve the safety on Windburn Way. Based off of that, in March 2025, the Park Commission established a working group of Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Weiner, and myself. We spent 7 months reviewing options, engaging the public, and developing recommendations based off of that input. We held an open house at the Grove. We reviewed all the options with the attendees and got feedback on each one, and then held a sort of a straw poll at the end where option 1 received the highest votes and option 3 getting the second highest votes. For reference, option 1 is where we have a, I guess it's the proposal that you guys spoke about a month ago, which is to have a, it's on my next slide, so it's to put in an 8-foot wide designated pedestrian walkway inside the 30-foot roadway and delineate travel lanes. Option 3 is the elevated crosswalk option at those 4 locations. When we opened it up for a 30-day public comment, I believe we received 42 comments, and 79% of those really had a concern about not closing Windburn Way to vehicular traffic. In those comments, and you guys have had all those in your packet before, there was a lot of other input in regards to what to do or not to do, but the key thing was don't close Windburn Way to vehicles, which was one of our options, which was to close it all for it. 36% wanted to see some traffic calming, and 10% wanted to close it Windburn Way to vehicular traffic. Since that time, and in the last week and a half or so, I think we have another 52 public comments that came in, and those were presented to you as well. Most of those were in support. There were some that were critical in regards to the potential actions in front of you tonight. So to review what that what 1B is what's here on the screen, which is 2 10-foot wide travel lanes with a double white line to help delineate and provide a little extra safety for the 8-foot pedestrian line. And again, as we all know, is for those pedestrians who don't have dogs, there are other alternatives to not be in the road right away. This again is primarily to address the dog walkers and those individuals who do walk in the roadway. We did review the addition of or modification of our dog policy in Lithia Park, and that was not something that kind of moved forward from the working group, and other feedback I got from others did not appear that was an idea that wanted to be moved forward. So the Proposed motion is to move to have staff add the approved Japanese garden ADA improvements and the windburn, sorry, I can't even read my own sentence here. I'm missing a word there, that's why. And the windburn roadway safety improvements that will provide a dedicated 8-foot wide pedestrian path in the roadway and delineate vehicular lanes.
Well, we're on this slide, and just for clarification for anybody in the public who's watching this, bike sharrows mean?
Bike sharrows communicates to the vehicular traffic that there's going to be bicycles in the roadway. It was adopted by ODOT as another visual reassurance to help communicate to the vehicles that bikes are in the roadway.
And in lieu of a bike lane, they use the road just like a car?
Yes.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions at this point? Commissioner Weiner?
As I'm thinking back to last month's meeting, I thought we had talked also about bringing back to this meeting a cost estimate regarding putting in potentially a DG pathway along the side, because we were thinking that might be a cost-effective alternative that wouldn't impact the roadway.
Well, I apologize. I wasn't in the meeting, and so
Do you remember anything?
I do recall here referring that there was some reference to that, but that is against.
Park commissioners did not direct staff to do that. It was discussed, but it was not, I don't recall there was a majority of commissioners that directed the staff in any way to do that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll talk about how to proceed next time.
There is a section, sorry, Commissioner, of the area where we have the parallel ADA parking stalls where there will be a design option needed in that area to widen the roadway, i.e. the pedestrian alignment. So I know that is an element of it for sure.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Chair. So when we originally came up with item 1B, my recollection is that we had 8-foot pedestrian walkway and 2 11-foot vehicle lanes. And I'm not real sure where the double white lines came in.
It was as part of the packet, and to provide that additional sort of 2-foot shy factor. It's a fancy way for vehicles that you shy away from an edge, and so those lines provide that extra 2 feet of buffer between the pedestrians and the vehicles. And so to get it all to fit with that space is why it's reduced, each travel lane's reduced by 1 foot.
Is that some kind of ODOT standard? I mean, I'm just curious. Seems reasonable. I like it.
It's an option, and it's utilized a lot. But if it's like an actual fence, then you have to build in that extra 2 feet. Like you go across the bridge, bridges are 4 feet wider than the roadway to apply for that, because you kind of shy away from those edges. It's kind of like when you go by a parked car and you're looking on that far side, you always give yourself more room than you think because of that natural tendency we have behaviorally.
And then to follow on Commissioner Gardner's question, is 10 feet considered to be an adequate lane for a vehicle? Yes, okay.
At 15 miles an hour and with the traffic volume,
Okay.
yeah.
And Commissioner Lunt?
I think just as a follow-up, I think 10 feet is adequate for residential areas which are faster than 15 miles an hour. In thinking about this, I'm realizing that I'm not really comfortable with the proposed motion, because we haven't really seen, we've seen a design for the...
Excuse me, can we just modify the motion when we, if we're going to have this, we're going to have a motion, can we just modify it when we get there?
Okay, I was going to ask a question, but okay.
Okay, yeah, so we'll just get through with the director's report, and then we'll go to a motion, and maybe you can actually, we'll see. We'll deal with it then. Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
I am done.
Oh, well, in that case.
So I think I am here for the dialogue, and then in a procedurally, if there's questions prior to a motion, which.
Okay, I didn't realize you were done. Commissioner Gardner, would you want to make a motion? Or Commissioner Lant, would you like to make a motion?
Well, I had a question first.
Oh, a question. So we still have a question?
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait. I'll wait to
to
call for a motion.
Am I not correct that the plans, we've seen plans in the past for ADA, but my understanding now is they're not going to be the same because there's not going to be a cutout for parking. It's going to be on the existing Windburn Way. Is that correct?
Yes, we came back in late 2024, if I recall correctly, and modified from having a parking lot, those 5 stalls, that we're going to take away the volleyball area, to having 2 parallel areas. And we were, I think the term we use is pilot that to see if that addressed the issue and refocus the improvements on the ADA accessibility, which wasn't part of the original scope because there was an assumption the current pathway already met ADA requirements. And so we do have those plans completed and ready to go. We've been waiting to combine these potential project elements for one bidding in the future.
I don't recall seeing those plans. Have the rest of the commissioners seen them?
No, they've not been provided. I did not understand I needed to bring them back for review or approval.
I don't think, we haven't seen those, and so that's my point. I think we can approve, and I want to approve this recommended roadway safety improvement that's before us. But I want to see what the configuration looks like for the ADA, the whole ADA plan, before we just say go and do it, because I just can't, I haven't seen it, so I don't know what it looks like. So it isn't just, this motion says, actually this one does, but what's in our packet, it basically says to, oh yeah, it does say here, to add to the approved Japanese garden ADA improvements. And if I was to approve that motion, if I was to vote for that motion, I'd be voting for something I didn't really know what I was voting for, so I'm unwilling to do that. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended roadway safety plan as presented with 10-foot wide vehicular lanes with bike shadow rows, 2-foot designated with lines, differentiation between the vehicular lane and the 8-foot pedestrian lane. I guess that's the motion.
Thank you. A second?
Oh.
And just so, and I just want to be, if,
We'll pause
Did
for
everyone
a
get that?
parliamentarian.
yeah, and I just want to make sure the rest of the body got that. It was a thick, there's a lot to that motion. So
Okay.
if I want to punt that to Commissioner Bachman, if anyone needs
Thank you.
clarity on that, or a repetition.
Let's repeat it.
Well, this might be a little different. I move to approve the recommended roadway safety plan as presented with 10-foot vehicular lanes and an 8-foot pedestrian lane, vehicular lane and pedestrian lane separated by a double white line, which takes up 2 feet for a total of the 30 feet of existing Windburn Way.
Everybody clear on that? Ms. Parliamentarian, do we need to include the bike sharrows? That's just a detail that, since we went to listing all those other details, I don't know.
I said vehicular.
Okay,
Yeah, to
we'll,
repeat.
we'll include that.
Okay, to repeat back, I said, I have, and Commissioner Lunt, correct me as I go along. I move to approve the recommended roadway safety plan as presented with a 10-foot vehicular lanes and an 8-foot pedestrian lane separated by a double wide lane. Maybe I didn't transcribe that part right, which takes up 2 feet.
It's white versus wide.
It's just a double white line.
That's
2
why.
feet. And as presented includes the sharrows, so that takes that concern away. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it
Commissioner Lunt, would you like to speak to
for
your,
discussion.
to your motion?
Yeah, that enthusiasm, that's not gonna make a strong case. All I'm doing, I thought all I was doing is taking a piece out of what we're going to do. It may be, if other commissioners want to go ahead and include. Thank you, sorry. If other commissioners want to include the Japanese garden improvements in a motion, that I don't preclude that. I wouldn't vote for that, but this doesn't preclude that. This just does, basically, it's moving to approve a portion verbatim of what staff is recommended to us.
Thank you, and of course, anyone could offer an amendment. Commissioner Gardner.
Well, I'm not going to vote for this motion, and what I don't like about it is, in our discussion at the last meeting about breaking this into parts, it was requested by at least one commissioner that we put it all in 3 separate parts, and I think the ADA parking is an integral part of this whole roadway plan. We've discussed the parking being in the street. It was in, I don't have my packet in front of me, but there was discussion of the pathway will have to go 200 feet off the roadway to make way for the vehicular parking. I mean, I think we should have an idea of what the concept's going to be. There's going to be ADA parking in front of the Japanese garden that will tie into an ADA trail that leads to the garden. And there'll be, on the other side of the road, there'll be a walking path that will have to veer off the roadway to give room for the vehicles, and then, then come back on. And at that particular area, it's not obstructed by trees. We can do a decomposed granite pathway off the road. And I just, to break that, to me, the two are together. They need to be done together is I guess my point. So that's why I don't like that motion, and I won't be voting for it.
Commissioner Adams, then Commissioner Weiner.
I actually agree with both of you, which is why I'm also going to vote against this motion. But my suggestion would, so let me specify how I agree with both of you. I agree with you, Commissioner Lunt, that it's really hard to vote on a proposal that we haven't seen a good design for. And I think that that's part of our job, is to know what we're voting for. And I agree with you, Commissioner Gardner, that these things have to live together, right? That we actually can't put ADA parking in the street just using this design, right? The design has to be different, right? The path has to move off the road. And I would really like to see what that looks like in order to vote for the whole packet. I'd like to have some visuals beyond this. I think you did a pretty good job describing it. And that's also a similar picture to what I have in my head. But that's not an insignificant part of the project, and it would be really nice to see it on the night that we're voting for it. That's my opinion on this piece.
Oddly, I think that you all have made really, really strong points. But what I'm concerned about is having not seen at all what that. The reason I wanted to pull it out last time was because I really felt that I think when the project comes together and the work is being done, that's one bundle, right? But I'm not sure that I really can understand exactly how the ADA parking that is in the current roadway and then somehow the road curves around it and then it kicks up onto the curb into a DG pathway and then the roads are 10 feet, but there's an 8-foot path on the others. It sounds like, quite frankly, a bit of a mess. And I'm concerned that where that and how that particular ADA parking slot, especially if there's a line down the center of the road, I feel it would create a greater hazard. In fact, I would suggest that if that center line wasn't even there at all and it was a single lane, maybe the 8-foot pedestrian potentially on the one side, no center lane, causes people to slow down. They know they're sharing the road. It's a shared two-way road. So I think that if you're going to put it in the center, I think the center line's a problem. And I think that not being able to visualize that, I don't see how I could vote for it. But absolutely, when the work gets done, all the components need to get done together. I have more to say on other topics.
No more topics. Stick with this one. Commissioner Lott.
Well, I have a question for the parliamentarian.
Yeah.
If this motion doesn't pass, and there's another motion that basically were to be made that was similar to what's up here, can you do that? Is that when you've already voted no clearly voted no on one part of the new motion?
Yeah, I mean, if it is actually the exact same motion, then that's redundant. The body's already spoken. But I guess I would just want to see what the second one actually looks like, because if it is different, then I see it as a different motion. So I would recommend.
Well, I mean, you can
Did I
see
answer
what
your
we're talking about. It's either there's a motion up here, and
I think what.
Well, the motion.
I think
so
he's
you had-
described a different motion, so it should be okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I think my recommended route is the body finish its discussion. There is a motion and a second, so then we vote on it, see the outcome of that. Go from there. Yeah.
Chair, if I may, there's also the opportunity to amend the existing motion through discussion and have one vote instead of two. So you have a couple different options.
I'd like to,
yes, thank you.
it's simpler for the chair if we vote on this one as is, and then I see another motion coming, so I think we will take care of the item. Roll call vote?
Commissioner Gardner,
No.
Commissioner Weiner,
No.
Commissioner Bachmann,
No.
Commissioner Adams,
No.
Commissioner Lant.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Commissioner Weiner?
I'd like to move to table any decision on the Windburn Safety Improvement Project at this meeting and request staff bring back depictions of what the project would look like with and without the center line and what the ADA parking section would look like for an action. I'd like to also see, as part of that presentation, a cost estimate with regards to DG pathway alongside.
And
I will second that motion, but please don't ask me to repeat it.
And if I may interject, it was to table and then bring back depictions for two things: the center line and ADA, what ADA accommodations look like regarding Japanese garden, and a cost estimate.
On the DG pathway.
And okay.
And do we need a time certain on that?
I can't commit to a timeline because I'm going to go out to contract, get an engineer, spend real money to get an engineering cost estimate, all those elements. It sounds like the back of a napkin approach from the director is not going to meet Commissioner Weiner's request.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Weiner?
While I support doing some improvements and enhancements on Winburn Way to improve safety for walkers, I think that with all of the public feedback that we got, much of it supporting the zero option, which was do nothing, I feel we're really obligated to do due diligence and make sure that we really understand exactly what it is and all the options that we are before we move forward. And so I think this gives us a little bit more time to do that with a little bit more input.
Commissioner Adams?
I agree with Commissioner Weiner on this piece. I'll defer to Director Houston about what level of clarity, but I'd like to see some sort of visual of what that area where we have the additional element of ADA looks like. I can visualize it to a certain extent, but I agree with Commissioner Weiner. We've gotten a lot of feedback on this, and really having a clear picture of what we're voting for would be very helpful.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Chair. Two things. I'd like to clarify, when you at the very end of your motion, it was a DG path. Is that for the whole length? So that was one of the major things that we discussed as a subcommittee. And I have to agree with Director Houston that that's going to take a lot of energy, and it's hard to believe that you had to add to the motion, but you did. And I had another point, but I can't remember it now. Thank you.
Commissioner Lunt?
Yeah, I think that motion has way too many elements for me to agree to. It would be one thing to say table it and get a little more information, which actually could be done by our director, I think. But all those elements that are in there, I'm going to vote against the motion.
Can I amend to remove that last request? Is that parliamentarian? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's fine, just as long as it's clear, as long as staff is clear on what that direction is. Yeah. And sorry, and in part, maybe I want clarity just because I'm not as familiar with the project itself, so I just want to make sure that direction is clear.
Let's start with
Can I
I'm going to
understand my understanding of the revision?
Is that okay to interject that at this point?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And so I think the question is if taking out the DG path makes sense. And it sounds like it does. So I just,
as a point of order, can Commissioner Weiner withdraw his motion and make a new motion?
I think
or once it's been seconded, is it anchored?
I think once it's seconded, we need to vote on it.
Modify it or vote
So
it down.
we can entertain an amendment, which would then be on the table. We settle that, and then we come back to the root motion. So you'd like to amend your own motion? Okay, yeah. Commissioner Weiner.
Yeah, I move to amend my motion to remove the last request for a cost estimate on the DG pathway.
I'll second that amendment.
Anybody else want to comment on the amendment?
Could you reread the amendment then as it would stand now?
Yeah, so the motion is to bring back to the body depictions of what the proposal looks like with and without the center line and to include ADA. And to include design depictions of the ADA improvement. Okay.
Any other comments? Right now, yeah, anybody else? Commissioner Lyon?
Well,
This is on just the amendment.
so we're just on the amendment.
Right.
The amendment helps. I still think there's issues, but the amendment helps.
Roll call on the amendment, please.
This is just the amendment?
Just the amendment.
Commissioner Gardner,
The amendment is to remove the DG? Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lant.
Yes.
All yes, amended motion passes.
So now we're back to an amended motion, which does not include the DG analysis,
And does not include the cost estimate.
the cost estimate, part of the analysis. Now I'm looking at the director, and this is a staff doable thing to come back with the graphic representing the parking.
I will confer with my staff on our existing ADA plan sets and see if we can add these elements without a heavy lift. And if it does require some additional work, I'll relay that back.
So if the motion passes, it might delay the project, but it wouldn't derail it.
Correct.
Okay, so we're back to the original amendment. Motion, thank you, and we can have more discussion, yes, okay, Commissioner Lant?
Yeah, I just don't see why, I'm not quite understanding the with and without center line, what that means. Is that the double white line? Is that what we're talking about?
The center line separating the lanes.
But that's not even depicted.
If I may, I'm interpreting that as if we didn't have a center line, it would create like a lane and a half-ish in regards to where the ADA parking stalls are parallel, which could not require us to add in the additional walking path. So we would work to see if that's an option. Alternatively, even if we had a double line, white lined ADA pedestrian pathway and no center line, again, that would just be choose your own adventure, the pathway. I'll say going up parts of granite, there's no lines there and there's parking, and sometimes there's a parking and you just kind of weave in and out as an alternative. I'm trying to conceptualize the different concepts. And so we would come back with an option with the center line and looking to make sure we have the space to where we have this, and then we would look at whether or not no center line would require us to have to push out for that 200 feet along those 88 parking lots.
Commissioner Lant?
So this is a question for Director Houston. So you're saying that it's not onerous to bring back both a center line and option and a no center line option?
No, I think the question I'll have to inquire with staff is what engagement with our engineer we need to do and coordination with Public Works as well. All the AASHTO provides us more leeway in regards to road design within a park versus a standard city street, but at the same time, we want to still make sure that whatever we are proposing is as good as possible.
Could I hear a motion again, please?
The motion is to bring back depictions of what the plan looks like with and without the center lines and with the ADA improvements. period. As a point of clarification, that was a amendment from the previous one, which had the DP path and
Cost estimate.
But the motion actually was the table.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, to table, yes, you're right, apologies. Table immediate action on Winburn Way, instruction to bring back depictions of what it looks like with and without center lines and ADA improvements. Thank you.
And with ADA improvements?
And with the ADA improvements, yeah.
Commissioner Gardner?
So we didn't put any timeline on this. And that's a little disconcerting to me because, you know, I mean, we could get all this back in 6 months and, you know, instead of.
So that's why I brought up the idea of time certain, but it needs to be a reasonable time.
Right, and I realize staff has to do work, but it just, like if, I guess we could just ask staff when it would come back and not amend the motion or anything, but
No,
it would be nice to know.
If I may, Chair.
Please.
If we don't have to engage our engineer, and I don't know if our contract's still open and we have to amend that agreement, we would work to try to get it back by the 7th, or the, actually it wouldn't be the 7th. Now my dates are off. This first business meeting of 2026. If for some reason we couldn't, we would let you know, and then we'd bring it back, hopefully in February. Now, if we do have to use the engineer, that's the only delays. And if it's a little bit better than a crayon in regards to showing what that looks like to help depict it better, then I believe we can hit the January meeting.
Commissioner Lott?
I want to point out that this work would have to be done anyway, if I'm not mistaken. I mean,
Correct. And
so we're not really not slowing anything down because we're just asking for more work to be done prior to approving it, but you'll be further along the line at that point.
That is a correct statement with this modification. It only is work we have to do if that is the path forward. Otherwise, we'd be potentially duplicating and increasing costs associated with the deliverable. But if staff's doing it, then it's just our time, and that's already a budgeted item.
So if there were a time certain for February 11th?
Unless, again, I have a contractual issue with the engineer, their timeline, but if staff will work on it.
So I'll make a motion.
There's a motion on the
There's a motion
floor.
on the, can I just say, can I say something?
My motion is to amend.
But I wonder if you need to do that. We have a public, on the public record, our director is saying when he thinks he can get it done, and if he doesn't get it done by then, he's going to have a good reason. He's going to have to explain that to us. So I think that the motion we have, we could have put a time certain in, but since we didn't, I think it's okay. I think we have on record our staff saying they want to get this thing done soon. We're saying we want to get it done soon. I'm good with that.
Thank you. I'm sensitive to Commissioner Gardner's concern. And I'm happy to make the motion, and we can dispense with it quite quickly.
It's up to you.
I move to amend the motion to include a time certain of February 11th. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I think we've had our conversation. Does anybody else want to speak to it? Okay, so let's have a roll call on the most recent amendment.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lant.
Yes.
All yes, amendment passes.
We're back to the table motion, tabling motion as the root motion. Any further discussion? So the motion is to table and have it back at our business meeting on February 11th. That's the content of the motion. Discussion? No? Roll call vote, please.
I can't remember who initially made that motion.
Who made it? Seconded by here.
Commissioner Bachmann?
Yes.
Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Gardner?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Weiner?
Yes.
All yes, motion to table passes.
We took quite a bit of time on that one, and that was because everybody spoke to many points, and one of them was we needed to really do our due diligence on this one and be sure that what we put out there on the street is what we think is the best solution. So thank you to everybody for being patient for the process. The next item is related. We may want to consider a similar tabling of that item. Modification of Winburn Way, Granite Street Y intersection action, or maybe not. Going to present it.
We'll roll the dice. So the issue is the sight lines southbound on the southern portion of the Y are limited. As you approach it, even in a taller vehicle, you can't see traffic going north, and you can't really see traffic coming south on Granite. And if you're northbound on Granite going onto Winburn Way, it allows you to continue that momentum as you come into the park. So the history is the working group identified it. It was a Houston proposal. The Transportation Advisory Committee identified it as, my interpretation of the meeting while I was there is that if we were going to do something that was the primary safety improvement, is to help address that if any action is taken by the Park Commission. After we had the TAC meeting, Transportation Advisory Committee, we met on site with Public Works, and they concurred and recommended the design, which this is my crayon version of that sort of design, which is to carry the curb and gutter from the, we'll call it the northbound portion of the Y, all the way up off of the screen here to the redwood tree, creating a median that would separate Granite and that Winburn Way portion. This solution would provide continued flow of traffic for the parking lot, so that if you're coming northbound or southbound, you have a mechanism to come in and still utilize the one-way grid for the parking lot there. In addition, even though it's shown as a median here, I just try to block out a car there. There is a potential for, depending upon the turning radius, to put parking stalls on one side of the road there. So we would go out to an engineer and have them design this intersection, making sure the turning radiuses work, the design is set up, and it's still functional. So this was the design. And if through the process of getting the engineering and working with Public Works and building permits, if there are other processes we have to go through and reviews, we would follow city policy on that. So a proposed motion is to move to direct staff to add the modification of the Winburn Way Granite Street Y intersection to the project scope of work to improve pedestrian safety on Winburn Way within Lithia Park.
And clarifying question, that would essentially be added to what we've just postponed till February 11th.
Correct.
And would we know by then when, what the cost would be for, no, okay. Is there a way to do
we could try,
what you
but I can't
proposed
commit to that.
without engineering, in other words, is this a Parks Department only possibility, or we're going to have to involve outside entities?
The Public Works indicated that we would have to have this engineered and stamped. However, there is a standing contract that the city has with a concrete contractor that we could get a quote in regards to once we have what the curb and gutters look like. The planner itself and material irrigation would be stuff that staff would be able to do. And so that's it's the 150 feet of curb and gutter, and then on the other side, whatever that looks like, whether that's 60 feet or 50 feet of curb and gutter to create the median.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions? Pro, ask for a motion. Commissioner Lunt?
Its narrowest width, how wide is the park row?
So at the intersection, or so the right of way, the road itself is 30 feet, but I'm guesstimating that we have probably a 60 or 65 foot intersection here between curb and curb currently. I don't have that exact measurement because it's at an angle, so it's broader.
I'm talking about the width of the park row. It looks like in order to make the turn into the parking lot, it's
Are you
narrowed
talking about
down.
here? And this turn here, or are you talking about
That's the
this
turn I'm talking about, yes.
This turn?
Yeah.
So this is 2 lengths wide, so it's 25 feet. It's a little wider at the top, and then it comes down into the 30 foot here.
I'm talking about the park row, the area that's green. Yeah. At its narrowest width, what is the width?
I don't have an exact answer. Again, my assumption is this is somewhere between 50 to 65 feet from curb to curb.
That's the length, but the width, you don't really have any idea.
Oh, so you're talking about how wide is the median going to be?
Correct. I'm calling it a park row, and I'm asking the width of the park row. Or the median.
The median, sorry, that's the median would be 4 to 6 feet based off of what the turning radius requirements are.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Commissioner Adams?
Director Houston, I'm wondering if you can clarify a little bit I wasn't at the meeting, but after reading Mr. David's email address, I did look at the notes from the meeting, and I agree. I don't see anything in the notes from the meeting of us being directed to do this. Can you give us a little more background on that?
So they didn't provide a action and a vote on any items. And so when we presented the project, each member provided questions and their own comments that varied significantly. So one person was, I think the common theme is that there's no accidents, crashes in this section of road. So per how they would look at any other road improvement, there's no work that needs to be required. And so that was their underlying point throughout of them. You know, there was, why aren't you doing something less expensive? Just allow dogs on the section between Granite and Winburn Way, and now you have an area. So that was an option. We've discussed that at the Park Commission level and at the committee, they were feeling that was creating other pushback from the community in regards to, and a slippery slope in regards to enforcement of no dogs allowed in areas. There were, so through all those comments and process, at the end, they said that you don't need to do anything. And then when I asked, well, if there were options, they referenced that the Y intersection there is a safety issue there, and that would be a safety improvement. And if you were going to do roadway improvements, that the elevated sidewalks would help slow people down and make those crossings safer. So those were all elements that were communicated in the meeting, and I conveyed that I would work with the Public Works Director's staff to go out, and we did that a day or two later and met and did some measurements and came up with my drawing here, which is an interpretation of what they said, and we reviewed the requirements from engineering and permitting.
Where is the sidewalk? Where do pedestrians go?
So if you are heading northbound on Granite Street, you're off screen here. There is a sidewalk that comes around, and then you see as it pops in here and comes around and comes into the park. And if you were to be a dog walker and you wanted to take a shortcut, you know, people cut through the parking lot or cut over here as well. So,
well, to me, people don't do that. You know, people walk a straight line. They're not going to go three parts of a rectangle, 3 legs of a rectangle rather than the straight line. And so that's always been from my standpoint, that's always been the weakness of this area, is there isn't a direct connection. And so it seems to me that this would be an opportunity to make that direct connection, but I don't, it isn't here.
Public Works recommended not having a pass-through for bicycles or pedestrians. They felt that would create an additional safety issue. So, now, we have a median here. Is that still going to allow people to do what they do now? Is they don't walk on the sidewalk. They walk down the middle of Granite or on the side of Granite Road all the way down, and then continue to walk down Winburn Way. So a median strip is not going to eliminate anyone from walking through there. We're just going to make sure that there's trees and other things there that continues to help convey that there is no roadway there, and is consistent with the other island that we have here now. Sorry, where we have that same sort of look and feel and make it look Lithy-esque.
Commissioner Gardner?
Action is approved.
So I just wanted to add, so when during the subcommittee meetings, this aspect of the safety project wasn't an afterthought, but it came after we discussed the main portion of the roadway. And this is mostly my recollection, so you can jump in whenever you want, but it's like it seemed appropriate to if we're gonna start a path somewhere on the creek side of Winburn Way, that we need to connect them with going up Granite Street all the way, because a lot of the dog walkers I see, they're going all the way up Granite Street or wherever. So it was a concept to try to continue that that pathway, but also, and I drive to the Parks office as much as anyone probably, except I don't work there, but it's like having to look 230 degrees back to see if cars are coming up. When you come up Winburn Way and you have to look back to see if there's conflict. To me, there's this other road that goes right up to Granite on a 90-degree, T intersection. Then it seemed like this would be a good remedy to make it more walking friendly and create a potential driving hazard. But I will say, the comments that came in about potential reworking of Granite Street after the the water treatment plant is done and other things like that, I mean, that makes a lot of sense too. I'm trying to think if there's some way we can keep this idea alive, but try to integrate it with maybe bigger projects that are going to happen to Granite Street, but don't just let it die, because I think it'd be, once we see how the pathway works, I think we'll want to somehow figure out if we can extend it here and make this better. And I agree with Commissioner Lawn. It almost seems like there should be a pathway up, but I didn't talk to Public Works, so I don't know what their feelings are on that. And that's all
Commissioner
I'll
Adams?
say to that. Thanks.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Not quite done with discussion, but I hear you. Commissioner Lawn?
I think you can wait till after the motion.
Okay.
I move to table this redesign of the Y indefinitely. Not throw it away in case we decide to talk about, this isn't part of the motion, but, so I'm saying table indefinitely, and I'm using that language deliberately as opposed to discard or vote against this.
I'll second.
Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, so I think Commissioner Gardner raises a good point here. This feels a bit separate from what we were talking about earlier. I appreciate, Director Houston, your work in this and heeding the suggestions of some people on the TAC of, oh, this is an area of particular concern. I think the design here to Commissioner Lott's point, in my mind, creates at least as many problems as it solves. As an example, as somebody who also rides up this street quite a bit, to my mind, I go, I'd rather turn my head, 110 degrees instead of 90 degrees in order to not lose my momentum going up that hill. I also, as somebody who runs through there regularly, the disruption of flow is concerning. I also see issues with, if we see the car in the graphic that has somehow transitioned from the right side of the road to the left side of the road as they're driving up the hill, that creates issues as far as traffic flow and lanes go. Concerns about larger vehicles being able to make that tight and narrow turn. And then just the expense of creating a whole curbed median with planting and drainage issues and stuff like that. This just seems like a expensive, an interesting idea, but an expensive one that could theoretically create as many problems as it solves. And so that's why I'm recommending that we table it indefinitely. If we're starting to talk about a Granite Street redesign after finishing the water treatment plant, maybe we use this as a starting place and we brainstorm and think about a best solution there. But I don't think this is the time nor the way for this particular area.
Commissioner Weiner?
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate a lot of those comments and thoughts, and Commissioner Gardner's thoughts as well. I agree. I mean, I think there's a host of problems with how this particular component of this project moved forward. I don't think enough thought and integration with the community, with other potential concerns such as Granite Street and how that would interface with future work that's going to need to be done there, with the work that's going to be happening over the next handful of years. And I think it's an area that's ripe for opportunity in the future to really work with the city and develop something really special and spectacular there that isn't just what would feel like an afterthought and an obstruction to flow of traffic, and that can actually accomplish all the things we want to do, which is traffic flow, speed reductions, enhanced safety and travel. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. This isn't it.
Commissioner Gardner?
I'd just like to say that I appreciate what everyone said. I don't necessarily like the term indefinitely, but I'm not going to die on this hill, so I'll vote for this motion.
Commissioner Lunt?
Well, I'm sorry if I made it, have only been, point out the negative on this plan, because I actually see some really positive here. I think that this does address a couple of important issues. And I do see the point about the cars having to cross over to get into this, but it is just into a parking lot. So, and I think it actually does increase, even though it's, I don't know, I think there should be a sidewalk there, but even without the sidewalk, it's certainly going to be safer than it is now, because if you walking down Granite and you just continue down Winburn Way, you're walking where the only cars entering the parking lot is the only traffic that you're going to encounter. So it's pretty minimal traffic, and it's traffic going at a slow rate. So I think it actually, in the 90-degree intersection with Granite is also a real positive. So I'm not sure, I don't think I'm going to vote for this motion, because I think the indefinite part of it is a little, to me, it seems too close to final. And I think that even waiting, I don't know that waiting for what might happen after the water treatment plant goes in and what improvements happen in Granite is really the way to look at it. What I do think would make sense to me is, before moving forward with anything here, that there would be more conceptual work on what the best layout is. And I think, because I think that it might be worth a landscape architect looking at traffic flow and et cetera, and see if they can come up with better ideas. But conceptually, I think this is a good starting point, and I don't think that just tabling it indefinitely is what I would be my approach.
I'm again, in my comment into the record, which is I do think we need to work this area over. I mentioned last time even thinking about a roundabout, but I'm not troubled by the word indefinite. It's just not time certain. So we can always bring the concept back one way or another. So I'm going to support it, Commissioner Adams.
I have a question and then a comment. My question is, I think at one point you said you looked at traffic data for this area. How many accidents are there currently around that Y? If we look back,
that's really not what we should be doing now.
This is a relevant question.
I don't know. I do know.
I object to the ability of the chair to shut down that question, which is relevant
Okay,
to
that's
this
fine.
discussion.
Point of order. My concern is we're debating the merits of the motion, and we ought to have clarified earlier.
Yeah, in full honesty, I thought the conversation was going somewhere else, so I was looking into a different question.
Okay.
Would you mind,
My question was how many accidents are there, since Commissioner Lott raised the question of it needing to be safer. I'm curious as to how safe it currently is.
Okay, and then for Chairman Bachman, your concern was that it's not relevant.
This wasn't the proper time to ask the question during a deliberation.
I mean, I guess my thinking is we have a motion, we have a second. Your question pertains to whether or not
I'm asking a clarifying question to the director that's relevant to the debate, which I think is in order, and that the chair interrupting that question would be out of order.
I would recommend allowing it for clarification and then wrapping up the conversation to get to the motions. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
A TAC member, Transportation Advisory Committee, looked up the Granite Street section, so I don't know the exact specifics. And it had a 5 in it. I can't remember if it was 5 or 15. So it was a few months ago. So a lot fewer accidents than there is in the lower section of Winburn Way, where there's the 40-some accidents with bicycles and such. So there was 5 to 15 on that whole section, I believe, from Nutley up to the intersection with Granite. So there was a couple points where those other accidents could be occurring at.
Thank you. And I don't expect you to have encyclopedic knowledge, by the way. I've looked at this before too, and I also don't remember it.
I happen to remember the number exactly. Specifically at the Y intersection, there was one accident since 2018, and it was a rear end. It wasn't a cross-sectional incident.
So that was, I guess that's my point, is it's improving on one accident in the last 7 years that's a hard number to improve from. Maybe we can. I'd like to go from 1 to 0. But to the other point about this word indefinitely, which is chosen specifically, it's just to say that it's an undefined period of time, right? That we're not bringing it back on February 4th or February 11th like we are the other one, but that you could. We haven't defined that you can't bring it back in a month, but just that we're tabling it and we're not identifying a specific time to bring it back. That was the purpose of the motion.
Roll call vote, please. And we're voting on the motion. The motion is to table this particular item indefinitely.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund.
No.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 5, our last business item, indoor facility use policy, and this is also action.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hopefully, I'll try to make this quick. This is, again, we're bringing back the indoor facility use policy, and it outlines the procedures and rules and requirements for indoor facility, physical resources that are managed by Ashland Parks and Recreation Department. The public feedback we've received, or the public input and feedback we've received, we had the original draft that came to the commission in October 1st. We did a public comment period between the 7th and the 20th of October on the website, and no public comment was received. November 12th, the final policy was presented to the Parks Commission for adoption, and there was some direction to modify the policy. And then we again posted it on the website between November 13th to December 1st, which no public comment was received. So tonight, the proposed action is to adopt policy 1.03.001, indoor facility use policy. And I'm happy to answer any questions related to the policy itself.
Questions? Commissioner Lunt?
I have a motion.
Any questions? Commissioner Lunt?
I move to adopt policy 1.03.001, indoor facility use policy, as presented.
A second.
Would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Adams?
Yay, balloons.
Anyone else have any comment? Okay.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Any liaison reports? Item 9. Seeing none, we'll proceed to upcoming meeting dates. Park Commission Strategic Goals Special Meeting is next December here, next week, December 10th here at 6 p.m. We have a City Council Commission Committee's presentation celebration. That's the council having a meeting and their committees. That's here on December 15th at 5. Ashland Senior Advisory Committee meeting, January 12th, Senior Center, 3:30. Recreation Division Advisory Committee, January 15th, The Grove, 3:30, and Trails Advisory Committee in January 21st to be determined. Is anything been determined? No. Okay. That's the end of our agenda. We'll adjourn the meeting. I will adjourn the meeting.